Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 137, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to your podcast with the videos on YouTube. What a show we have today on the heels of Dana White's infamous White House card announcements, some other things happening around the world of mixed martial arts, recapping UFC 326 and previewing this weekend's Apex card. So let's jump right in. Some fights that have been announced outside of the White House. We have Alexander Volkov taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta at UFC 328. Very good heavyweight showdown as Waldo gets another attempt at the best of the best in the heavyweight division. As Volkov's kind of in purgatory, you got to take the fights that you can get. We have Yana Santos out of her fight. Insert Norma Dumont against Jocelyn Edwards April 25th. Norma Dumont staying active, especially because the division's held up with the Kayla Harrison injury, and she has to wait for that fight to shake out. Fight again, a young up-and-coming woman on a streak. Prove yourself again for the title fight. Tough business, but it is what it is. We have Montel Jackson taking on Yoni Barcelos April 25th as well. Good bantamweight scrap with a ranked opponent and a scrappy veteran. At UFC 327, we have Nazim Sadikov taking on Markel Medeiros. And then added March 28th, Ricky Simone and Adrian Yanez. Quite a banger of a fight potential there. But after basically a year of anticipation, Dana White had announced the White House card. I had done my preview of what I thought it had been on social medias, on X. I'll pull that up, what I thought it would be. Let's see here. So I originally had thought that the White House card would be around John Jones. I feel like they wanted the Kayla Harrison-Amanda Nunes fight, but with the injury, that wasn't going to be plausible. So I had John Jones, Alex Pereira. I was wrong there. I had Ilya Topuria, Justin Gaethje. Was correct there. I had Sean Strickland, Khamzat Chimaev. Potentially, with how strict the White House is, maybe they didn't want Sean Strickland there, or Khamzat couldn't clear whatever reason, as they're doing background checks, things like that. So that's actually moved to its own pay-per-view. Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley, I was close. I'm assuming Petr Yan isn't quite ready. I thought they'd throw Derek Lewis on there. I was wrong about that. I thought they would throw Colby Covington on there. I was wrong about that. But they did book the Bo Nickel Kyle Dawkins fight. I just figured by the time June was ready, he was a good candidate. He's willing to fight anyone, anywhere, and Bo would have to suffice. So that's a couple of the fights that have been announced. We have Bo Nickel taking on Kyle Dawkins. I think that's a great fight. A lot of people feel like Kyle Dawkins isn't a big enough name, but with the way the UFC schedule is, you can't have, all championship bouts on here like Donald Trump was hoping it would be. They're only doing a few fights. Supposedly these won't even count on their professional record, the way it's sanctioned and the way it's done, which is a bummer, but still will be a big deal with how these things shake out. I'm not opposed to the fight. I think it's a good fight where Bo Nickel is, and a great opportunity for Kyle Dawkins in his revenge tour. But we did get Alex Pereira on the card taking on Cyril Gane. I do like this fight. I think this is a great heavyweight fight for Alex Pereira to see if he has the chops in the upper division. I would have loved to see John Jones. John Jones has been vocal about how upset he is that he isn't on the card. Wish that would have worked out. I'm assuming John Jones is basically done, unless somehow he fights Francis Ngannou, who's now a free agent. I don't know if the UFC wants to deal with Francis Ngannou. Really cloudy storm cloud above John Jones. I would love to see him one more time. I'm sure the rest of the world would as well. So a little bummed that didn't happen, but I do like the Alex Pereira Cyril Gane booking. We have Mauricio Huffy taking on Michael Chandler. Love that we get another American fighter on this card, as Alex Behead and Cyril Gahn aren't. And Mauricio Huffy, after his last performance, is an exciting fighter that should be a high-action fight. So I think that's a win-win, violence, must-see affair. We have Diego Lopez, Steve Garcia. I think this is low-key the biggest banger on the card. I can't wait to see that one shake out. That's a win-win for the fans. I was a little surprised that they booked Sean O'Malley against Ayman Zahabi. I think Corey Sandhagen's the more intriguing fight. Sean said he didn't have the choice. They said, do you want Ayman? They said yes. Supposedly they had another option. I'm assuming that other option was Petr Yan, and he wasn't going to be ready because of injury, traveling to the States, background, who knows. But it is Sean O'Malley, Ayman Zahabi. Ayman, though, just like Kyle Dacus, deserves this opportunity. He's on a streak. Now we get to see how good he really is. And can Sean O'Malley rebound and get an opportunity and crack back at the Bantamweight Championship? I'm not too opposed. I wish there would have been a different opponent. I'm thinking the UFC thought the same thing, and maybe it just didn't work out. And then we did get Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje. Supposedly there was a fight that fell off. I want to think it was John Jones. Dana White said it wasn't. Rumblings on MMA media says that it was supposed to be Ilia moving up to take on Islam. Would have loved to see that fight. I think Ilia should fight more at lightweight. Do I love that it's Gaethje? I think this is a lopsided affair. You never know with Justin Gaethje. But I'm intrigued to know what the fight is that fell through. Supposedly it happened at the weigh-ins of UFC 326. There was viral clips of Hunter and Mick just looking devastated. So nobody really knows the truth. It seems like it was Ilia trying to move up. I'm happy he's staying at lightweight. I think that's best for him. But still, high-action fight should deliver. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10 due to the fact that I would have liked to see the Kayla Amanda. They can't control that. I would have liked to see a John Jones or some big name on here, a little bit of a surprise. And then supposedly maybe it was going to be Ronda. To be honest, I don't even care about the Ronda fight. They're old. They're past due. These Netflix fights never turn out. It's a lot of has-beens. They're trying to live off the names. So I do think the fans will be excited because the best part about the White House card is just the spectacle. Going to be the weigh-ins, the free tickets to the fans, the whole kebab, how they're going to do it, how they're going to fit them, what kind of atmosphere they're going to be. That's going to be the biggest part. And I'm not opposed that it's a shorter card. Some people think it should be more. I'm not opposed to it. I believe it's happening on a Sunday. Let's see, June 14th. Yeah, Sunday, so that'll be an interesting concept as well. But I think the UFC did a good job. Maybe they add another fight on here since the fight fell out. But I'm getting in an 8 out of 10. I just feel like it's missing that one big step. I think you put Khamzat Sean Strickland on here. It does enough. Ilia Islam potentially moves the needle a little bit more. But I would have loved to see John Jones on here. That was the one must-have for me. I didn't expect Conor to go. I am a big believer that Conor can't fight that soon because he is not able to pass the testing protocol because he's been on steroids since he broke his leg, and it's been hard for him to get off. So I'm excited for this, super pumped up. We will talk more about that. But we do have some other news in MMA world. We have Francis Ngannou fighting Felipe Lins on Netflix under the MVP banner with Jake Paul under the Ronda Rousey fight. I love that they're getting Ngannou on here, but no offense to Felipe Lins. This is not a needle mover. He's just happy to be there. And people are like, oh, what MVP's doing is better than the White House. I completely disagree. And I think after the products are finished, you will see that it doesn't come close. On the UFC roster news, Felipe Bunes, Jose Medina, Eric Silva, Chris Moutinho, AJ Cunningham, Gavin Tucker, and Phil Rowe removed from the UFC roster. I don't think any of these are surprises. A little bummed about the Phil Rowe move. He's had a tough go of late. But the UFC has cut the roster. I don't think there's a lot of surprises there. But what I want to do is look at some of the cards of last year, look at what the preview is of this year, how the year is delivered, because I am seeing a lot of people saying that the UFC is falling off, that the product's not there, so on and so forth. A lot of, I don't think I fully agree with it, but we'll look at the facts, I'll take a educated opinion when looking at the cards. I just think not every single card is going to deliver. It's like the NFL, MLB, NBA. Not every single game delivers. There's a shit ton of games. You know, we only have one once a week. But the fact that they're putting out events majority of the weeks, I'm okay with it. because some of the big cards that aren't the bigger names or Apex cards do over deliver, and that does bring good products. But there is always at least a dozen, what have been pay-per-viewed or number of events, plus some small events that deliver. And over the course of the year, it's good. It's the best talent by far over any promotion, boxing, anything. Muay Thai, kickboxing. I've tried to get into everything. I'm a huge MMA fan, but the UFC is far and above, and I don't think they're at the point where it's just falling apart like some people think. It's all about what have you done for me lately, and I think how big they built the White House and the anticipation, plus some of the early numbered Paramount Plus Day events just haven't quite delivered, so fans are furious. That's classic. It's like the NFL, your team loses, the sky is falling, then they go on a 3-game winning streak, now you're winning the Super Bowl. So let's talk a little bit about it. So if we look at just Q4, which would be December, November, October, let's see how the UFC delivered last year. On October 4th was UFC 320, Magomed Ankalaev, Alex Pereira. That fight didn't really deliver, but we had Merab wrestle Corey Sandhagen to death. The fantastic Yuri Prohaska, Khalil Roundtree fight. Yusuf Salal managing Josh Emmett fairly easily. Abus Magomedov, Joe Pyfer, Ataba Gautier with that fantastic round 1 finish. The terrible Patchy Mix affair. Solid fight with Edmund Shabazi and Andre Muniz as he got a round 1 knockout. Punahele Soriano, Nikolai Varentenikov, Yana Santos, Macy Shassan, Farid Basharat, Chris Gutierrez, Ramiz Brahmahai, slight work of Austin Vanderford. Not in a fantastic card, but not a terrible card. Then we had Fight Night, Oliveira, Gamrot. I thought that main event was a great fight. Split decision between Davison Figueiredo and Montel Jackson. Joel Alvarez, Vicente Luque, Mario Pinto handling Janata Deniz. Con Offley surprisingly submitting Ricardo Ramos. Rafael Filho, Clayton Carpenter. Vitor Petrino, round 3 knockout over Thomas Peterson. Again, nothing fantastic, but I still think a solid card. The main event delivered there. Then we had Fight Night, RDR, Brendan Allen. This was the infamous, terrible performance by RDR after looking like a world beater. Mike Malott handling Kevin Holland. Ayman Zahabi, Marlon Vera split decision. That was a fantastic fight. Manon Fiorot dismantling Jasmine Jasdavicius. Charles Jourdain getting back on the winning track against veteran Davy Grant. Kyle Nelson, Matt Fravola. Drew Dober smoking Kyle Prepelec. Arichi Long knocking out Cody Gibson. Bruto Silva submitting Hyung Sung Park. DeJordan Santos, Danny Barlow fight was fantastic. Again, not huge needle mover, solid card overall. I would take these versus not having cards. Would take them over any PFL event, any boxing event, so on and so forth. October 25th in Abu Dhabi, we had Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn, Ipoke, Mackenzie Dern beating Virna Jandiroba in a hard-fought battle. The Mario Batista Umar fight was solid. Volkov with a split decision over Jailton Almeida. Azamat Murzakanov knocking out Alexander Rakic early, which surprised me. Big knockout for Quillian Salkild over Nasrat Haparist. Ikram Oliskerov, unanimous decision over Jungyoung Park. Ludovic Klein, decision over Matush Renbecki. That was a solid fight. Nathaniel Wood, Jose Delgado, fantastic fight. This was a pretty solid card. If it wasn't for the Ipoke, everyone was anticipating that main event. This would have been a huge needle mover, so not quite. So now we head into November. We had Garcia Onama at the Apex. Steve smoked him. Waldo smoked Ante Delia. Jeremiah Wells Themba, all right fight. The probably most criticized fight with Yadier Devalle and Isaac Delgarian. Alan Nascimento submitted Cody Durden. The rest of the card, it's an Apex card. It wasn't fantastic. So, yeah, that one was kind of a skip. November 8th, we go to the Apex again. Bonfim knocking out Randy Brown. Joseph Morales submitting Matt Schnell. Yarosh Medic knocking out Muslim Sadiqov. Chris Padilla knocking out Ismail Bonfim. CLD knocking out Marco Tulio. Jamal Emmers over Hyder Emil. Yoni Barcelos over Ricky Simone. Jacqueline Cavalcanti over Myra Bueno Silva. Denise Gomez over Tisha Pennington. Daniel Marcos submitting Miles John. Zachary Reese submitting Jackson McVeigh. That was actually a pretty solid Apex card. If you like action and finishes, which majority of the fans do, I'd rate it like a 6 out of 10. UFC 322 and MSG Islam handling Jack Della Maddalena. Valentina Zhang Wei Lei. Michael Marias knocking out Sean Brady. Carlos Prates knocking out Leon Edwards. BSD knocking out Benil Dariush. Bo Nickel knocking out Hidalgo Vieta. Gregory Rodriguez defeating Roman Kopylov. Aaron Blanchfield submitting Tracy Cortez. Ethan Ewing shocking Malcolm Wellmaker. Kyle Dacus submitting GM3. Pat Sabatini decision over Chepe Mariscal. Fatima Klein decision over Angela Hill. Beisinger Susurkayev with a round 3 knockout over Eric McConico. I mean, this was a fantastic card. I remember this. People didn't like Islam, Grappling, and Valentina, but two of the best handling work, showing there's levels to the game. I thought that was a huge needle mover right before Thanksgiving. Then we had the fight night, Arman Sarukian submitting Dan Hooker. That was a great fight. Ian Machado Gary defeating Bilal Muhammad. Ozdemir knocking out Alonzo Menefield. Miktabik Oralbai knocking out Jack Hermanson. Waldo knocking out Shamil Gaziev. Kyoji Horiguchi submitting Tagir Ulanbekov. I mean, that main card was absolutely fantastic. In the prelims, they had the Luke Riley defeating Bogdan Grad. That was huge. Nicholas Dalby beating Saigid Azak Mayev. Asu Almabayev, round 3 submission over Alex Perez. Abdul Rakhmak Yakiev submitting Rafael Cerquera, which I don't think he should be on the UFC roster. Alexandre Topuria, decision over Bekzat Almakin. Ismail Nardiev with a round 1 knockout of Ryan Loader. I mean, that was a solid card. Good prelims fight, absolute good main card. That was in Qatar. I mean, back-to-back cards, end of the year finishing strong, which set us up for UFC 323 on December 6th, where Petr dismantled Murad Dvalishvili, looked the best he's ever looked. The injury to Pantoja in the van fight. Tatsuro Taira knocking out Brandon Moreno. Peyton Talbot defeating Henry Cejudo. A draw between Baklovich and Guskov. Baklovich always getting draws. Manuel Torres knocking out Grant Dawson. Chris Duncan submitting Terrence McKinney. Macy Barber defeating Karine Silva. Fares Ziam defeating Nazim Siddiqov via knockout. Bruno Fajeda decision over Marvin Vittori in the prelims. Jalen Turner knocking out Edson Barboza. Iwu Baranowski knocking out Ibo Aslan. Mansour Abdul Malik submitting Antonio Tricoli. Myron Santos round 3 knockout over Muhammad Naimov. I mean, to have Myron Santos Naimov is the first fight in a loaded card at T-Mobile. I mean, this is a fantastic card. I do remember the bummer of the van injury, but the rest of the card absolutely fantastic. That's 3 consecutive cards in Q4, and they finished the year with Brandon Royval, Manel Kopp at the Apex. Manel Kopp with a round 1 knockout. Kevin Vachejos with a round 2 knockout over Giga Chikadze. Cesare Oligjaychuk with a decision over Cesar Almeida. Melquizil Costa, round 1 knockout over Morgan Scherer. King Green, split decision over Lance Gibson. Yaroslav Amasov submitting Neil Magny. Joe Anderson Brito, decision over Isaac Thompson. Steven Asplin knocking out Sean Sharaf, which I don't think Sean's UFC caliber. I know there's a lot of flack that a lot of these guys shouldn't be in the UFC. A lot of Contender Series guys. But this is the breeder grounds to fill cards when you have a commitment to then ESPN, now Paramount Plus. You know, sometimes they overdeliver, sometimes they don't. But I think this was a solid Apex card. The main card was great. I mean, King Green, Melquizil, Cesare, Vachejos is on a roll. Manel Kopp showing he's that guy. Solid prelims fights. For an Apex card to end the year, I thought it was solid. So October, a little rough. November, okay. And then from UFC 322 on, I mean, fantastic events by the UFC. And I thought the first Paramount event this year, Gaethje Pimblett, was awesome. I was there in person. I thought it was a fantastic card. Reminder, Gaethje beating Patty, called it. Suga beating Song. Waldo defeating Derek Lewis. Natalia Silva defeating Rose Namajunas. Jean Silva defeating Arnold Allen. Umar defeating Divas and Figueiredo. Ataba Gautier defeating Andrei Pulyayev. Nikita Krylov defeating Modestas Bukakas. Alex Perez defeating Charles Johnson. Josh Hokett on the mic. Ty Miller, the young Ty Miller, beating Adam Fugit. I thought every fight was great. I really enjoyed that fight in person, starting the year off hot. Then we had Volkanovski Lopez 2. I enjoyed the fight. It was basically a copy and paste from the first one. BSD knocking out Dan Hooker. That was fun. Mauricio Rufy and Rafael Fiziev was fun. Talishin Teixeira Tai Tuivasa was sloppy. Quillian Salkid with the submission over Jamie. Cam Rouston knocking out Cody Brundage. Jacob Malkoun out wrestling Torres Finney. Oban Elliott lost to Jonathan Mikulev. Khan Offley defeating Yiza. And they had the road to the UFC on here. I mean, good prelim fights. The main card overall was high level. Again, I understand that the fans want more, but I liked it, and I think I'd rather watch that over any other product. Then we had the fight night. Mario submitting Vinicius Oliveira. Kyoji beating Amir Albazi. Rizvan Kuniev defeating Jailton Almeida. Michael Oleksiejczuk defeating Marc-Andre Barriol. That was a great fight. This was a fantastic fight. Farid Basharat defeating Gene Matsumoto. Dustin Jacoby, Julius Walker. Danil Donchenko, Alex Morano. Nikolai Vitenkov, Nico Price. Ketlin Souza, Bruno Brazil. Javid Basharat, Gianni Vasquez. Wang Kong, Eduardo Mora. Wicklats defeating Muin Gafurov. Almost every single fight on this card was solid. Great Apex event. Again, the UFC is basically 6 cards in a row that are solid. Then we had Sean Strickland, Anthony Hernandez, Yarosh knocking out Jeff Neal, Melquizil knocking out Dan Ige, Sergey Spivak defeating Ante Dalia, Jacoby Smith knocking out Josiah Harrell, Michelle Pajeda defeating Zachary Reese. That main card delivered. Carlos Leal, Chidi Njokuani was great. Alibi Adrias defeating Ode Osborne. Alden Correa defeating Luis Uriel. Jocelyn Edwards defeating Nora Cornell. Punahili Soriano, Ramiz Brahmahai, fantastic fight. Jean-Paul Labozniani, Phil Rowe. Jordan Levitt, Yadier Davalier. Carly Judice, Juliana Miller. Again, very great card in Houston. I feel like the UFC is on a roll. February 28th, we had Moreno Loney Kavanaugh, David Martinez, Marlon Vera, King Green, Daniel Zellhuber, Edgar Chairez defeating Felipe Bunes in a split decision, Emmanuel Rodriguez coming out, knocking out Kevin Borjas. The prelims light card, but still solid fights. I wouldn't say they super hit in Mexico, but it was solid. Holloway Oliveira 2 obviously sucked the air out because we expect a BMF fight between Holloway and Oliveira. Oliveira just manhandled Max Holloway. I'm not against it. I respect it. I understand that you don't like all the wrestling, but I thought it was still a solid fight. Kyle Baralho defeating RDR. That was a good fight. Rahul Hosas grappling Rob Font, but still dominated. Drew Dober, Michael Johnson was fun. Robocop, Bruno Ferreira rematch was fun. Cody Garbrandt, Xiaolong was terrible. The rest of the card, meh. So, I know UFC 326, we expected more. But then, I just feel like they're not in a bad spot. So, again, I don't think the sky's falling. We forecast what's coming up this year. There's a lot of great cards. We'll talk about the fight night coming up. We got Avloev taking on Lerone Murphy and a solid card in London. I think it's a little light, but a lot of young fighters could over-deliver. We have the Seattle card. Israel Adesanya, Joe Pyfer. That's a ton of fun. Alexa Grasso, Macy Barber. Ton of fun. We get to see Mansour Abdul Malik again. Terrence McKinney, Kyle Nelson. Tofik Musayev, Ignacio Bahamondes. Chase Hooper, Lance Gibson. Marcin Tybura, Walter Walker. Casey O'Neal's back against Gabriela Fernandez. I mean, Navajo Sterling, Bruno Lopez. I think that's a fun one going down in Seattle. I wish I could go in person. Then April 4th, we have Moicano, Chris Duncan, Virna Jandiroba, Tabitha Ricci. Pretty light card there so far in the Apex. And we have UFC 327 going down in Miami, UFC 328 in Newark, New Jersey, the White House card, Fight Nights in Macau. We go to Perth and Winnipeg. And not all these are built out yet. Supposedly Dana White's going to be announcing a bunch of these coming up. But I think the UFC's in a good place. I don't think we need to overreact. And I think in a couple of months, especially getting into summertime, it's stacked, not just at the UFC, PFL action, boxing action, MVP action, bare knuckle, all those events. I think we're in a good place. So just calm down. Trust your boy. Again, you tune into Bows and TKOs. What do I want to watch? What is he breaking down? What can I skip? What do I need to pay attention to? Who's up and coming? I got you. So let's talk UFC 326. I went 8-3 on my picks. Getting the momentum back, looking good. Overall, 825 wins, 411 losses, 12 no contests and draws. On the year, 45 wins, 21 losses, more than doubled the losses. That's what I'm going for. So to recap this card, I thought the prelims were underwhelming as expected. You know, the first CBS fights of the Paramount Plus era started off brutally, but I did think the main card got off to a violent start. It did fizzle throughout, though. But I was impressed with Charles' dominant performance, like I said. I know that he grappled a lot, but he was picking up Max, manhandling him, and he just went straight at him and said, I am going to put you on your back foot. You're going to have no shot to come at me. But to recap the entire card, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 because of the clunker in the main event. Definitely sucked some of the air out, but still solid card. Some good fights we will not break down. We had Rodolfo Bellato with a round 1 TKO over Luke Fernandez, performance of the night. Alberto Montez with a round 2 submission via anaconda choke over Ricky Tercios. He absolutely slept him. Another performance of the night. But we're going to kick this off in the prelims. We had Niam Jargal, Tumen Dembarel with unanimous decision over Cody Durden. And I thought this was just a really lackluster performance by Cody, as he was really controlled wherever this fight went. I was actually surprised how much Niam Jargal went to grappling, but man, he was able to dominate and control Durden for a lot of the fight, which I thought Durden would be able to handle himself in those wrestling exchanges. Because Cody wasn't having much luck with his own offensive takedowns, and he wasn't landing much offense or having any significant moments throughout the 15 minutes. Usually we see Cody being much of an aggressor and turning fights into brawls, but he didn't have a chance because every time he tried to close distance, Niam Jargal was taking him down or landing big shots. Cody tried a lot in the first round, but he was reversed and controlled, and I think the pace and the intensity in the first round going back and forth definitely exhausted the older Cody Durden, and the younger Niam Jargal looked better than ever and really just had Cody trying to survive for majority of the fight. Looking at the stats, Niam Jargal landed 43 total strikes, 25 of them significant. He did have 4 takedowns. He was 4 for 4, 2 reversals, a submission attempt, and 6 minutes and 52 seconds of control time. And Cody landed 54 total strikes, 8 significant. He had 3 takedowns and 8 attempts, so not very good, less than 50%. But he did have 3 reversals and 4 minutes and 50 seconds of control time. So Niam Jargal extends his winning streak to 2. He is 2-1 in the UFC. Cody extends his losing streak to 4. He has not won since September of 2024. So what's next? I'm assuming Cody Durden gets cut, sadly. And for Niam Jargal, how about Alden Correa, the young up-and-comer? Moving on, we had Cody Garbrandt taken with unanimous decision over Xiao Long. And this fight was absolutely a mess. Cody started way slower than I expected. I thought he was going to come out guns blazing. But you have to credit Xiao for this. Because every time Cody tried to trot forward and get into boxing range, Long was throwing big, powerful body kicks, head kicks, and he landed a couple early on, and I think that made Cody hesitant trying to close distance. He had to find a way to get in without getting punished. Cody then tried to resort to grappling when he couldn't close the distance, and he was paying for it because it didn't work either. I mean, the rest of the fight was a mess. Cody got hit in the nads a couple times. The second one had Cody dry heaving on the canvas. Supposedly, he eventually threw up, which by rules should be a disqualification. I'm glad they didn't disqualify it, but the fight didn't pay off anyway. Except after the first point, after he got back up with the bucket, Cody seemed super ticked off, and he was just charging at Chow. He was ready to go. But after a few exchanges, Long kneed him right in the cup, had 2 points taken from him. The judges somehow gave Cody round 1. I thought Long's kicks did enough to win the round. He still should have won. But with the 2 points deducted, he ends up losing the fight. Cody should have still lost the fight. But again, 3 judges gave Cody round 1. I don't agree with that. But it is what it is. Cody didn't seem to want it. It didn't seem like he wanted to go and fight in the 3rd round. He felt like with the 2 points, he could just kind of avoid contact, circle, and get the job done. I know he got hit in the nuts a few times, probably wasn't feeling good. But come on, man, you're a former champion. Your career's in shambles. I know you technically get a win, but I promise you the UFC brass, it's not helping you at all. But Shao fought good besides the fouls. But, dude, you can't keep fouling like that. I mean, clearly, it's going to cost you. This is a tough loss for you now. It could have been a huge win for him. I'm sure Cody will stick with the promotion. I just don't expect anything from him the rest of his career. Statistically, Cody landed only 28 total insignificant strikes. He was 0 for 8 in takedowns with 53 seconds of control time. And Shao landed 70 total strikes, 59 of them significant. He was 1 for 2 in takedowns with 47 seconds of control time. So Cody extends his ends his 2-fight losing streak and starts a new winning streak. He is 3-2 since 2023. And Shao extends his losing streak to 2. He is 1-3 since 2023. So what's next? I say give us Cody Garbrandt, Malcolm Wellmaker. I think that would be the funnest way to match up Cody. And for Shao, how about Alan Tengeli? Moving on to the main card in the rematch. We had Gregory Rodriguez with a round 1 knockout over Bruno Ferreira. Performance of the night, well-deserved a RoboCop. I mean, I figured RoboCop would find a way in this rematch because he's just too talented. Both men started the fight very cautious, clearly respecting each other's power, as Bruno knocked out RoboCop in the first round on a counter strike a couple years ago. I didn't expect Gregory to just get the job done with 1 punch. But that's how deadly of a striker this man is. He is absolutely massive for the weight class. Bruno Ferreira, very talented, came in absolutely shredded, best shape of his life. Gregory timed the shot perfectly, and it was an absolute nuclear bomb. Bruno Ferreira's lights were out. And it only took Gregory 2 total insignificant strikes with the knockdown. 1 was an unnecessary follow-up shot, and Bruno landed 2 total and significant. So Gregory extends that winning streak to 3. He is 6-2 since 2023. He moves up 1 spot in the rankings to number 12. And Bruno ends his 3-fight winning streak. He starts a new losing streak. He is 6-3 since 2023. The man has been active. He does stay at number 15. So what's next? I would love to see RoboCop and RDR go at it, while Bruno could square up with Ikram Aliskerov. Moving on, we had Drew Dober with a round 2 knockout over Michael Johnson. Performance of the night. Nice payday for Mr. Drew Dober with the finish. I mean, this fight was a doozy to start as expected. I thought this had potential fight of the night. I mean, we were able to see that Drew was controlling the distance. Every time he let out a combo, Michael would counter him very well. He had the hand speed advantage over Drew, but Drew landed with power, and it made for a very fun fight while it lasted. Drew did a good job attacking all levels, attacking the legs, attacking the body and the head, while Michael was mostly landing boxing strikes up high. But round 2, Drew was fully loaded and landed a massive shot that put Michael Johnson's lights out. He followed up with another shot, wasn't needed. He said he tried to pull back. But big win for Drew to get back on track. Tough loss for the veteran MJ, who's been on a roll. I'm sure he will be fine, and he will be allowed to fight as long as he wants. But I do feel like he should take some time off this year because that was a nasty knockout by Drew Delbert. Statistically, Drew landed 22 total and significant strikes with the knockdown. Michael landed 27 total and significant. So Drew extends his winning streak to 2. He's only 3-4 since 2023. Michael ends that 3-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He's 3-2 since 2023. So what's next? I would like Drew to fight Rafa Garcia. I think that'd be fantastic. For Michael, how about a showdown with King Green, as I mentioned before? Then the young stud doing his thing, Raul Rosas Jr., with unanimous decision over Rob Font. I'm glad I didn't pick Rob as the underdog. I had a feeling this would happen. But Rob came out unusually in a weird stance, low stance, hips back, trying to avoid the takedowns in almost like a wrestling stance, and it didn't work because Raul would rush him with a combo and use that as an entry for a takedown and basically put his shoulder in, blasted him up to the cage, almost tackled him like an NFL player, and he was able to get a takedown each round, so Rob really couldn't get anything going. Raul wasn't able to do much offensive work, go for submission attempts, or land much damage. That's what kind of made this fight lackluster. But Rob did a good job defending, credit to him, much like Max Holloway, which we'll talk about in a minute. You know, working back up, he wasn't able to keep Raul off of him. Brutal loss for the veteran. Statistically, Rob only landed 29 total strikes, 10 of them significant. He was 0-for-1 in takedowns with the reversal. And Raul landed 47 total, only 8 significant. He had 16 takedowns for 18 attempts. If he wanted it, he got it. He did get a reversal and had 10 minutes and 5 seconds of control time. You say, hey, you know, I hate fights like this. With Max and Rob, to be able to be on your back for 10 minutes, get taken down 16 times, still battle, not be in a threat by their submission or have them landing and raining down nasty ground and pound, that's a skill in of its own. Try just fighting off your back for 2 minutes, do some jiu-jitsu or something, you'll understand. Now, Raul extends his winning streak to 5. He's 5-1 since 2023, and he enters the rankings at 21 years old at number 13. And Rob extends his losing streak to 2. He is 3-4 since 2023. He drops out of the top 15. So what's next? I mean, Raul is very young. You know, he's clearly going to grapple fuck his opponents. So let's book him with Farid Basharat. Let's see how that shakes out. I think that'd be fun. And for Rob, how about Bryce Mitchell? Moving on to the co-main, we had Caio Borralho with unanimous decision over Ranier de Ridder. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised by Caio having his hands down and being so loosey-goosey in the fight. But man, was he landing big shots on RDR. He had him rocked early in the fight. And the thing with RDR is he's so non-technical with his striking and grappling that Borralho was able to get away with his hands down in that close fight. But since RDR was getting beat up while standing, he went with wrestling and was only successful at round 1, but didn't do anything with the takedowns, and Caio had the bigger moments. Round 2 was pretty damn razor close, but again, Borralho rocked RDR, and that gave him the round to go up 2-0, so RDR needed to finish. Both men at this point, lots of exchanges, pretty tired by the end of round 2. I wish Caio would have went and gone after it after rocking RDR previously in the fight, but I understand such a high-profile fight, you don't want to put yourself in a bad spot. Because the thing about RDR, if you've been listening to my episodes, he's just a big bully. He's massive for the weight class. He just tries to overwhelm his opponents by being the bigger man and overpowering them with sloppy takedowns and big lunging loopy shots. And it's worked, but it didn't work here. And I'm very happy for Caio to be able to do that. Because round 3, RDR was more active, but Caio got a takedown of his own and still landed the bigger shots in the round. RDR was just pretty much gassed to land anything with much impact. But that should do it for RDR's run at the top of the division as he's a little bit older already and that keeps Kyle right in the mix. Fighting nerds, stand up. Statistically, Kyle landed 71 total strikes, 57 of them significant with the takedown. He did have 2 minutes and 52 seconds of control time. And RDR landed 111 total, 55 of them significant. He had 2 takedowns and 8 attempts, not very good, but did have 2 minutes and 46 seconds of control time. So Kyle starts a new winning streak. He moves to 5-1 since 2023 and moves up 2 spots in the rankings to number 5. And RDR extends his losing streak to 2. He is 2-4 since 2023. He stays at number 8. So what's next? Well, Kyle called out DDP, and I think this is the fight to make. It's just really more of a high-level RDR matchup. And for RDR, let's get him matched up with Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. That's a banger. Then the BMF headliner, Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira, with a masterclass unanimous decision over Max Holloway. I mean, this fight was simple. Charles had a simple game plan. I'm going to blitz Max like he does a lot of his opponents. You know, Charles gets in their face. Put Max on his back foot, chop that lead leg early because he has that big wide stance, and strike himself into takedown attempts. Max couldn't do anything about it. He was taken down in each round. I think it was round 4. Max actually had engaged in his own wrestling and takedown attempt, but Charles reversed him and got a takedown of his own. In those situations, championship rounds, I wish Max would have just separated and looked to overwhelm Charles with his good striking. But legit, Charles just steamrolled Max unlike anything we've ever seen. I mean, no one's done anything like this to Max. But you have to give Max credit because Charles had over 20 minutes of control time and only had Max in danger in the first round. The rest of the time, he defended very well, did as best as he could do. Not a BMF stylistic fight as we were hoping for, but complete, utter dominance by Do Bronx. And the way Charles owned the octagon versus such a good opponent in Max, it's absolutely mind-blowing. I did enjoy respect the game plan. I respect the hustle. Would I like to see them just go tit for tat? Absolutely. But Charles looked like the big lightweight, just overpowered Max here. Huge win for Do Bronx towards the tail of his career. It's going to be tough for Max to rebound, but if anyone can do it, Max can. Statistically, Max landed 73 total strikes, only 26 significant. Last week, we talked about all the striking records and how he gets 100 strikes every fight. Completely shut down. He had 1 minute and 36 seconds of control time. Charles landed 110 total strikes, 50 significant. He had 5 takedowns in 13 attempts, less than 50%. Again, credit to Max. He did have 4 submission attempts and 20 minutes and 49 seconds of control time. That's more than 4 rounds in totality of the 25 minutes. So Charles extends that winning streak to 2. He is 4-2 since 2023. Max starts a new losing streak. He moves to 4-2 since 2023. They both stay at number 3 and 4 in the rankings. So what's next? I mean, Charles has fought everyone in the division. Potentially, you could book an Arman Sarukian rematch or maybe Benoit Saint-Denis. I don't really know what else makes sense for Charles at this point unless he randomly fights Conor McGregor. And Max is in a tough spot now. I think the best matchup for him has to be Dan Hooker. They're both going to stand and trade. I think that's a win-win for them and the fight fans. So make it happen. But yeah, a little bit of a bummer with how that fight played out. The prelims were pretty brutal, but Paramount did get a doozy with RoboCop's one-punch knockout. The Drew Dober fight, Raul fight was pretty snoozy. The Kyle fight was great. Charles Oliveira fight, it is what it is. I wasn't too upset about it. But this weekend, we go back to the Apex. Early prelims at 2 p.m. Pacific. Prelims at 4 p.m. Pacific. Main card 6 p.m. all on Paramount Plus. To preview this card, to be honest, this is a deep card. Like, the stylistic matchups, the matchmaking, it's probably deeper than what we just watched at UFC 326. I think there's fun matchups. The prelims have some big fights in the top half. I think the main card's absolutely full of solid fights and great matchmaking. So I'm previewing this a 6 out of 10, which for an Apex card is about as good as I go because they usually don't have, title fights, top of the line contention. So let's break it down. There's no good fights that we aren't previewing. We're previewing the whole shebang pretty much. Starting in the prelims, we have Elijah Swift Smith, 23 years old with a 9-1 record, taking on Soo-Young Jiu-Jitsu Yu, 30 years old with a 16-3-2 record. Now, this is a quality early fight in the prelims. I mean, Elijah's still pretty raw, but he is a very explosive and powerful prospect. And Soo-Young has an impressive start to his UFC coming from the road to the UFC, but he has mostly been a decision fighter. I think Elijah is going to bring the pace and risk safe positions for a finish in this fight, so Yu is going to have to be very aggressive. Breaking it down, Elijah is a Fury FC and Dana White Contender Series alum. He's on a 7-fight winning streak, 3-0 in the UFC. 5 of his 9 wins are via knockout, and he has some length. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Sue is a UAE Warriors and Road to the UFC alum. He's on a 5-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC. 5 of his 16 wins are via submission. Both of these fighters are good everywhere, but they are not great. Elijah should have the speed and explosive advantage. He does have less experience and is very green. So I'm really excited to see how both of these men have grown and who is the aggressor here I think is going to have the advantage. I expect that Elijah will have the cardio advantage for the full 15 minutes as well. For that reason, I'm taking Elijah Smith. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down. And we getting that bread. Moving on. We got Balaji the Zulu Warrior Oki. 30 years old with a 10-3 record. Taking on Manuel Manumoto Sousa. 28 years old with a 13-1 record. Now, Manuel is well-rounded. He's not even in his prime yet at 28 years old. He has some nice wins like a round 1 knockout over Tim Wilde in Bellator. And he lost a very tough decision versus Archie Colgan in 2024. And Archie's been a fantastic fighter in the PFL. Now, he is a solid striker who is powerful and has good cardio. But Balaji is older, just now in his prime at 30 years old. And I think he's going to show out as he has already fought very stiff competition of the likes of Mason Jones and Chris Duncan, although he did lose in those fights. But Balaji has fought a very close decision in September of 2025, and he continues to improve. I do think Manuel is going to test him and put him in deep waters, but I think Oki is just a better athlete and more technical. Breaking this down, Oki is a Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 3-2 in the UFC. 5 of his 10 wins are via knockout. And he does have a 3-inch reach advantage and a leg reach advantage. Now, Manuel is a Cage Fury, PFL, Bellator, LFA, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 1-0 in the UFC. 8 of his 13 wins are via knockout, 3 via submission. So 11 of his 13 wins via finish. Now, this is a very hard fight to pick. Manuel reminds me a lot of like an RDR, DDP style of fighter, just in a smaller weight class. Again, I think Oki fights closer than the odds suggest. I think him being like a plus 210 or greater underdog is pretty wild. But I do think both men are aggressive early, look to mix in some takedowns. I think Sousa resorts to grappling. The reason being, I think Balaji rushes forward and brings the action right at Manuel, and he will do a great job battling. But the later the fight goes, I think the more it favors Manuel. But Oki should have the speed advantage, so I think he handles business early in the fight. For that reason, I'm taking the underdog. The dogs come in to eat. Ho-ho! But I'm avoiding this on any parlay, 50-50 coin flip. Moving on. In the welterweight division, 1 fighter moving up, 1 fighter moving down. We have Miktabik Oralbai, 28 years old with a 15-2-1 record, taking on Chris Action Man Curtis, 38 years old with a 32-12-1 record. Now, Chris has recently moved down to welterweight. He won a very close fight in his return against Max Griffin. And Miktabik has moved up and had very impressive win with that beautiful knockout victory over a very good veteran, Jack Hermanson. Now, Miktabik seems to be the best version of himself as he's nearing his prime at 28. And Chris has struggled against the better competition in the middleweight division. You know, he's almost 39 years old, so that's going to play a factor. Breaking this down, Miktabik trains out of Team Alpha Male. He's an LFA alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 4-1 in the UFC. 7 of his 15 wins are via knockout, 6 via submission, so 13 of his 15 fights via finish. Very impressive, almost a 50-50 split. Regardless, he's finishing you. Chris trains out of Extreme Couture. He's a Contender Series, PFL, and Icon Fighting alum. He was the 2021 Comeback Fighter of the Year. He's on a 1-fight winning streak. He's 2-3-1 since 2023, 1-0 at the welterweight division, and 17 of his 32 wins are via knockout. Now, Miktabik has to be full of confidence after beating a stud veteran in Jack Hermanson, also defeated Tafik Musayev in the first round. Chris has really good takedown defense and great slick boxing, so it's all going to come down to if he can keep Orolbai off of him, keep the fight on the feet. If so, this could be a really fun fight. I expect Orolbai to blitz right at Chris without being worried and just overwhelm Chris kind of like Charles did Max Holloway throughout this fight and eventually get the finish. For that reason, I'm taking Miktabik Orolbai. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down and we getting that bread. Moving on. Still in the prelims here. We have Brad Tavares, 38 years old with a 21-12 record, taking on Eric ya boy Anders, 38 years old with a 7-9-1 record. I love the nickname ya boy. It's just untypical. It's kind of fun. But this is supposedly Anders' retirement fight. And to be honest, Brad shouldn't be much further behind him. Neither man have had a ton of success of late, but are both well-rounded and should make for a great fight. Both men have good, what I call MMA grappling. It's not like they could go win freestyle competitions or folk style, but they do have good MMA grappling. And I expect most of this fight to stay standing unless Anders initiates the takedowns. Eric is a little bit older, even though, you know, they're the same age because he's close to 39. I just think he has more power and Brad is more technical. Breaking this one down, Brad trains out of Extreme Couture. Eric Nixick's going to be busy. He's tied with Michael Bisping for the most wins in UFC middleweight history with 16. He has the most bouts in middleweight history with 27. He has the most bouts in UFC history without a post-fight bonus, 27. It's pretty brutal. He has the most fight time in UFC middleweight history at 5 hours, 49 minutes, 18 seconds. The most decision wins in middleweight history with 14. He's tied with Neil Magny for most decision wins in UFC history, also 14. The most decision bouts in middleweight history with 19. The most unanimous decision wins in middleweight history with 11. He's tied with Rafael dos Anjos, Bilal Muhammad, and Kamaru Usman for second most unanimous decision wins in UFC history with 11. So all the decision victories, he's got them. He's tied with Krzysztof Jotko for most split decision wins in middleweight history with 3. He's on a 1-fight losing streak, 2-4 since 2023. 6 of his 11 wins are via knockout. Now, Eric has a kickboxing and BJJ style. And it's 6 of his 21, by the way, not 11. Eric has a kickboxing and BJJ style. He has a black belt in BJJ. He did play linebacker at Alabama and won a BCS championship. He did play for the practice squad of the Cleveland Browns. He's a Bellator, LFA alum, and former champion. He's on a 1-fight losing streak, 2-2 since 2023, and 10 of his 17 wins are also via knockout. To be honest, I've always enjoyed Brad Tavares since The Ultimate Fighter. I have not been very impressed with Brad's striking of late, and I think that Eric has committed to, this being his last fight. I think he's going to take more risks. He's going to be willing to die on his sword, so to speak. I do hope this is a high-paced, high-action fight. I do think it'll be a doozy, but I'm taking the underdog, the retirement fight for Eric, ya boy, Anders. The dog's coming to eat. And we are putting that on the parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We got Charles Energy Johnson, 35 years old with an 18-8 record and the number 14 next to his name, taking on Bruno Bulldog Silva, 35 years old with a 15-7-2 record and the number 15 next to his name. Charles of late's kind of making headlines in the weirdest ways because he just knocked out the young stud Lonnie Kavanaugh. He just destroyed flyweight champion Brandon Moreno. Then Charles lost to a round 1 knockout by veteran Alex Perez only 4 weeks ago. He's turning back on short notice because Bruno was originally booked to fight Kavanaugh, but Kavanaugh got moved up on the Mexico card. Now, Bruno is a high-paced, high-risk fighter, and he puts it on his opponents. I think that will favor Charles striking with his length. This should be fun. Breaking it down, Charles trains out of Murcielago MMA. He has a blue belt in BJJ. He's an LFA alum and former champ with 2 title defenses. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 4-2 since 2024. 8 of his 18 wins are via knockout. He has a 5-inch reach and leg reach advantage. Now, Bruno trains here out of Fight Ready MMA. He's a tough Brazil and LFA alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-2 since 2023. 6 of his 15 wins are via knockout, 5 via submission, so 11 of his 15 wins via finish. And 3 of his 7 losses are via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Bruno is no easy out, and he loves to fight. Again, I think Charles will do a good job picking his spots and striking at Bruno from range, making him pay when he closes distance. If Bruno could take Charles down and keep him down, it could be a long fight for him, but I'm betting that Charles can keep the fight standing long enough and either edge out the scorecards or potentially get a finish. For that reason, I'm taking Charles Johnson, but I'm avoiding this on any parlay. Anything is possible in this one. So now to the main card. Again, the UFC is falling apart. It's shit. We got Elijah Smith, good fight. Oki and Manuel Sousa. It's going to be a fun one. Miktabik oral by Chris Curtis, great fight. Anders retirement fight, vet versus vet with Brad Tavares. Charles Johnson, Bruno Silva, top 15 action, razor thin margin here. That's just the prelims. To start the main card, we got Vitor Petrino, 28 years old with a 13-2 record and the number 15 next to his name, taking on Steven Concrete Asplund, 27 years old with a 7-1 record. Now, Steven's on a roll, but I don't think he has the potential and the capabilities that Vitor has. It's rumored Vitor has an injured hand. I don't know. Supposedly it's his dominant right hand. But I think he's going to take Steven down and do enough to get the job done. I don't think Asplund fights at a high enough level to be able to manage a guy like Vitor Petrino, even though he is bigger in the heavyweight division. Breaking this down, Vitor is a UAE Warriors and Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 6-2 since 2023, and 8 of his 13 wins are via knockout. Now, Steven is an LFA and Contender Series alum. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 2-0 in the UFC. 6 of his 7 wins are via knockout. And he does have a 4.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, again, Vitor's dominant hand is compromised. So if Steven can last, the back half of round 2 and round 3, I do think he has a chance. I think Vitor gets a quick takedown, though, and handles business. But Steven, he's got the will, the determination, the grit, the heart, all of the above. I just don't think he's talented enough. For that reason, I'm taking Vitor Petrino. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. Fantastic fight in the featherweight division. We got Jose Delgado, 27 years old with a 10-2 record, taking on Andre Touchy Feely, 35 years old with a 25-12-1 record. I love the Touchy nickname. I mean, this isn't a fantastic fight. Andre at the edge of his prime at 35. He's been fighting for a long time. People thought very highly of him. He's kind of had some ups and downs. But he is talented enough everywhere the fight goes to be in the top 15 of the featherweight division. And Jose is a rising talent that ran into his first roadblock in the UFC last fall. But he's continually improving. He's very well-rounded as well. Nathaniel Wood was able to beat both men. And I think it was a big difference in their fights. But if anyone is going to get takedowns, I think Jose probably does, although he tries to overpower Andre in this fight. Breaking it down, Jose trains out of the MMA lab. He's a Rough, Cage Warriors, UFL, Tough Enough, LFA, and Contender Series alum. He's on a one-fight losing streak, 3-1 in the UFC. 6 of his 10 wins are via knockout, 4 via submission. So all 10 of his wins via finish, almost 50-50. Now, Andre has a BJJ style. He trains out of Team Alpha Male. He has the third most bouts in UFC featherweight history with 25. He's tied with Max Holloway for second most decision wins in featherweight history with 9, behind Cub Swanson. He has the most split decision wins in featherweight history with 5. He's tied with Gleison Tibau for most split decision wins in UFC history with 5. He's on a one-fight winning streak, 3-3 since 2023. 10 of his 25 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 12 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Again, this is going to be a very strategic high-level showdown. Andre really needs a win more than anything at this stage in his career. And I think the odds are pretty much a slap in the face. Jose's like a minus 400, minus 450 favorite. Andre is so good, you can't give him those odds. I think anything is possible in this fight. You know, his last 2 wins have been very close split decision victories. Jose should come back stronger after his first loss in the UFC. I do think he'll have a slight power advantage, but Andre needs to stick and move and throw a high amount of volume in this fight. I just don't have enough confidence for him to do this for 15 minutes against a young, confident, and aggressive Delgado. That's why he fights a lot of split decisions. I just don't think when he's in there, he puts together where he's at in the round, and sometimes he loses some rounds that he should win. For that reason, I'm taking Jose Delgado, but I'm actually not putting this on a parlay. I think Andre is really live in this fight. Moving on, we have Jan the Hulk Cutelaba, 32 years old with a 19-11-1 record, taking on Umar C, 30 years old with a 12-1 record. Now, this is an interesting matchup. We get a longtime veteran who is in the middle of his prime. He's only 32 years old. He's looking to get some momentum back, and Umar is kind of newer to the UFC, still a very raw fighter, but does have good kickboxing, usually has the length advantage on anyone he fights in the division. And Umar has recently added some grappling to his advantage, but I don't think he messes with that, as I think Cutelaba has a huge edge in that department. Breaking it down, Jan has an orthodox stance. He trains out of the MMA Factory. He's a Cage Warriors alum. He's on a one-fight losing streak, 3-2 since 2023. 13 of his 19 wins are via submission or by knockout, and 4 of his 11 losses are via submission. Now, Umar is an Eagles FC, Octagon, and KSW alum. He's on a one-fight winning streak. He's 3-1 in the UFC. 5 of his 12 wins are via knockout, 4 via submission, so 9 of his 12 wins via finish. And he has a size advantage, man. 8-inch reach advantage and a 3.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, unless the Hulk lands a big shot early, I think this is going to be a very hard-fought decision. And it's hard for me to think that Umar is going to be able to keep that fight standing. But if he does, I do think he will have a speed advantage. And if he's smart, he'll find a way to use his length to his advantage as well. He could really pick at Cutelaba and deliver some damage. You know, Umar is only getting better at this point in his career. but I do think this is much closer than the odds suggest. It's hard for me to have faith in Cutelaba. I've picked him many times when he's lost, even though he's in the middle of his prime, because he just he's the Hulk. He sees red. He just starts throwing big loopy shots. And I think C, being the taller, lengthier fighter, could have knees up the middle, straight kicks, nice jab him up to death. But I could also see a world Cutelaba has way more experience, that he actually fights with a high IQ, mixes in grappling, finds a way to close distance, and just pieces up Umar C, because he is such a raw fighter. This is a brutal fight for me to pick. Because I picked some other underdogs, I am avoiding Cutelaba. I'll probably regret it, but I will take Umar C, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays. Absolutely anything's possible here. Cutelaba is a fun underdog bet if you want some underdog money. Then in the co-main, in the women's strawweight division, we have Jillian the Savage Robertson, 30 years old with a 16-8 record and the number 8 next to her name, taking on Amanda Lemos, 38 years old with a 15-5-1 record and the number 5 next to her name. Now, Amanda is almost 39 years old, but she has fought fairly well of late, hanging in there when she had to deal with the grappling of Tatiana Suarez in a decision loss, and grappled the young Yasmin Lucindo and defeated current champion Mackenzie Dern. The problem is she's facing one of the best grapplers in the division again, who's on a tear and isn't going to stand and trade with the heavy-handed Lemos. Breaking it down, Jillian has a BJJ and kickboxing style. She trains out of the Goat Shed Academy. She has a black belt in BJJ. She has the most finishes in women's flyweight history with 7. The most submission wins in flyweight history was 7. The most submission wins in all of women's history at 7. Most submission wins in flyweight history at 6. She's tied with Amanda Nunes for most finishes in UFC women's history with 10. She has the highest top position percentage in UFC women's flyweight history at 21%. The highest top position percentage in women's flyweight history at 41.9%. The second most control time in flyweight history, 54 minutes, 16 seconds. The second highest control time percentage in flyweight history, 44.6%. The second most top position time at flyweight, 50 hours, 57 seconds. 50 minutes, 57 seconds, sorry. The second most submission attempts in flyweight history with 8. She's an Island Fights alum. She's on a 4-fight winning streak, 5-1 since 2023, and 9 of her 16 wins are via submission. Now, Amanda is tied with Rose Namajunas and Mackenzie Dern for second most finishes in UFC women's strawweight history with 5. She has the most knockdowns landed per 15 minutes in UFC women's strawweight history at .91. So almost 1 knockdown per 15 minute. She's tied with Denise Gomez for second most knockouts in strawweight history with 3 of them things. She's a Jungle Fight alum and former champ with 2 successful title defenses. She's on a 1-fight losing streak, 2-3 since 2023, and 8 of her 15 wins are via knockout. Now, Jillian in her prime and Lemos is in the twilight of her career. If this wasn't the case, I do think Lemos would be able to get the job done. But regardless, it's a big step up in competition for Robertson. And this is kind of her moment to cement herself at the top of the division and make a run at the title. Again, this comes down to Jillian getting takedowns, having control time, and landing damage. But she does have to be careful because Lemos has solid submission game as well. If the fight stays standing, Lemos has great hands and it could be a long day, potentially a finish for her. But I do think Jillian gets the job done. I'm taking Jillian Robertson. We are putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Kevin Elchino Vachejos, 24 years old with a 16-1 record and the number 14 next to his name, taking on Josh Mr. Clean Emmett, 41 years old with a 19-6 record and the number 11 next to his name. No, Josh Emmett's nickname is not actually Mr. Clean. I think at one point it was CO2. but big, shredded, bald white guy, Mr. Clean. So we get a young stud who is on a roll, taking a step up in competition, taking on a scary, hard-hitting veteran who's looking to get a win back on his record in his 40s. Although Josh just turned 41, he is still a very explosive and powerful veteran. Kevin's not just going to be able to walk him down. He's going to have a more measured and technical game plan to avoid the big bombs that Josh throws his way. Breaking this down, Kevin is a Contender Series 2-time alum. First time he lost to Gene Silva. He's on a 6-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC, and 12 of his 17 wins are via knockout. Now, Josh has a wrestling background. He wrestled NAIA out of Menlo College. He trains at a Team Alpha Male. He has a purple belt in BJJ. He's a King of the Cage alum. 3 of his last 6 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He has the most knockdowns in UFC featherweight history with 12. He's tied with Chuck Liddell, Quentin Jackson, Cody Garbrandt, and Montel Jackson for the most consecutive fights with a knockdown landed in UFC history with 7. Good company there. He had the 2023 Knockout of the Year against Bryce Mitchell. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, 1-4 since 2023. 7 of his 19 wins are via knockout. 2 of his 6 losses are via submission. I was pretty surprised this week. Josh looks to be in great shape, and I'm sure is at his best, and he is determined. I think this being a 5-round fight benefits the younger, more durable fighter in Kevin Vachejos. But Kevin needs to be patient, needs to be technical, and he needs to make sure that he stays away from Josh's power hand, man. If Kevin thinks he can just go and handle business by overpowering or immediately pressuring Emmett, I think he's going to learn a lesson. But I am taking Kevin Vachejos. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. I think Josh is just too dependent on the big wild hooks. If Kevin could come in at straight shots, I think the job's going to be done. I'm not saying Josh Emmett's washed, but he is 41 years old. I think he's lost some of that speed, and I think he's just kind of a two-trick pony. He's got his power shots. I wouldn't be surprised if this Apex card has the world raving. I mean, again, the prelims, it's like a full card, an Apex card. Then in the main card, Vitor Petrino, Steven Asplin's fun. Jose Delgado, Andre Fili is a fantastic fight. Kutalaba C is intriguing. Big fight in the strawweight division with Robertson and Lemos. See if Robertson deserves to be at the top. And, of course, the main event is probably going to be a knockout. But next week, we get early morning action in London at the O2. I do think it's a light card, but an action-packed title eliminator fight between number 1 ranked Movsar Evloev and number 3 ranked Lerone Murphy. Both undefeated. Someone's got to lose that L. That's episode 137. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.